What up? What up?
Oh my God, how are you?
Good about you?
Good, man. Episode what?
6?
Episode 6. And see, the streets were saying we weren't gonna make
That's what they were saying.
it. But now, not only did we make it, but we got a guest coming on that we'll introduce in just a second. So I'm excited to record number 6, and we'll get off to the races, man.
Back-to-back episodes with guests.
So today, Trey, we're being joined by Mr. Chad Luke. I've actually known Chad. Chad, how long have I known you?
It's been probably 3 years now.
3 years, yeah. So I've actually coached against Chad, and now Chad has we've kind of come together at a different place than either of us was when we actually started coaching, right?
Absolutely.
So Chad, we're not, we like to kind of get into some really difficult topics, and so tonight we're gonna, just be asking some different kinds of questions. And so, on that note, I'm gonna ask you the hardest one probably all night. Give me your Mount Rushmore, since we just finished Thanksgiving, of the Mount Rushmore of your top 4 things that you have to have for Thanksgiving.
Top 4 things for Thanksgiving. Broccoli casserole is one. That seems to be a tradition. Ham, dressing, and gravy.
And so Trey's shaking his head because I know how he feels about turkey. Tell me about the turkey. Turkey's not making the Mount Rushmore?
Turkey's good, but I think it's just all the years of leftover turkey that it's not the top.
Yeah, Trey likes the ham. Trey likes ham.
Oh yeah, ham
Yeah.
over turkey all day.
I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, so then, all right, on that note, so then we'll go right to the Mount Rushmore. So, Chad, give me your Mount Rushmore of NBA basketball players of all time.
Okay, I would have to say Michael Jordan, not Jackson. Michael Jordan, definitely my top. I would say Kobe Bryant, close second. Shaquille O'Neal, I would say I might put him at 4th, because I think Larry Bird, just because of how much trash he could talk and how fundamentally sound he was, that he could call out any player and give them a warning, a heads up, and say, this is exactly what I'm going to do to you. Whereas, one of the reasons why I think Kobe stacks up second too is one of my favorite stories about Kobe is when he played Reggie Miller, and they actually had the same agent, and he's asking him how the details on his step back and how he sells it up front. And then in the playoffs a year later, he used his move against him to win the series.
Crazy.
So when you see a player that can call it out and say, this is exactly what I'm going to do to you, win, like that has to be my all-time top. But the favorite story about Jordan is when other all-stars, after he came back out of retirement with the Wizards, and he made the all-star team, and he's talking with some of the other players that made it, and he's actually went through the whole team and detailed their strengths and weaknesses. That's how much he studied and loved the game. Like, he knew every kind of move, the best things, and then he would tell them, if you work on this, you're going to be unstoppable. If you add this to your game, if you do this, and he's coaching them up, even though he had nothing but the love of the game to help them at that point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's so many arguments to be had about like different eras, and so you look at like people we didn't get to watch play and how dominant they were in their era, and the argument's always like, well, let's just say for fun, Jordan didn't play, with a guy like against a guy like LeBron with his physicality, whatever. So there's a lot of arguments to be made about the eras crossing over in NFL and NBA and any sport. But I would argue that mindset, like their mindset was just unbreakable. So even if, let's say, we move a player like Kobe and Jordan to this era, Like
Right.
they're going to have the same resources those players have today, and they probably might even be better.
Hmm.
Uh, so you just like those players are just their mindset was just ridiculous. And then
Yeah.
Larry
So
Bird was just a freak player. Like I don't know, you'll see that again.
no,
Nah.
no. I mean, and so strong. And even Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, hearing the stories about when Michael Jordan came out and was on the USA team with him and that, and when they first really played against him, they're like, "Oh no, this guy's different. Like this is different."
Oh yeah,
Mm.
oh
And
yeah,
they were at the peak, they were kind of on the tail end of peak, and just their knowledge of the game was so much higher when they met and played together.
for
Hmm.
sure.
But they knew he was different. And Kobe, one of my favorite stories about Kobe was, just never get bored with the basics. One of the trainers that mentored me and that you know, he he talked about how when he was doing an NBA training and he said, "Okay, I'm going to go early." And he asked Kobe, he said, "Do you mind me watching your personal workout?" And he goes to the gym. He's like, "Yeah, I'll be there at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was." And he said, "I'm going to get my taxi an hour early. So I'm there 30 minutes before he is." And when he got there, he saw Kobe. He had already drenched in sweat doing basics, like doing hard dribbles, footwork, all the basics. And he walks into the gym. He's like, "I didn't think your workout started for an hour." And he said, "No, never get bored with the basics." He goes, "Why are you working on this stuff? Aren't you more advanced than that?" And he says, "I never get bored with the basics."
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Trey, I mean, I know you and I've talked about that too. Like, Trey, your challenge is how do you make the basics look different and package them
Right.
different so athletes don't get bored. And that's sad to have to do, but the reality of life is sometimes we're working on the same thing in five different ways, and that's where Trey's, creativity and trying to figure out, hey, how do we make these players work on the basics without them, basically repeating the drill, which is kind of sad, but it's the reality where we're at. Now,
Yep.
Trey, uh, tell Chad why he's wrong and he left off a player on the Mount Rushmore of NBA that he completely has a wrong answer here. Give me that one.
I knew it was coming.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, Kareem. Oh yes. I, and
Kareem
and
was
I borderline. That's what I would have said, Kareem or Shaq. But Shaq would have been so dominant. If Shaq had Kobe's work ethic, I think he would have been the best player of all time.
I
But
agree with that.
he didn't have that.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah, I remember meeting Shaq I was only 17. I was only 17 at the time, and I got to shake Shaq's hand, and my hand disappeared. Like I've never seen a human that large. His hand completely engulfed mine, and mine disappeared.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, if he had if you could combine Michael Jordan's competitiveness, which is close to Kobe, Kobe would be a close second, I would think. And then you had the work ethic of both of those, and you put that in Shaq's body, there would have been no question. But
Agreed.
Kareem, I mean, he was so technically sound.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true.
I, I,
That's
I
true.
still
So
think he has the most unguardable move in NBA history.
Yeah, and the physical assets to pull it off as well too,
that's
Yeah.
right.
consistently.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Natural transition, from the greatest of all time, really that's ever laced them up to South Guilford Cougars, which is what
Great
we're trying to
transition.
get this
great
program
transition.
to be. Um, you know, so when you and I coached against each other, and I was with Forsyth Home Educators, and we'll get into another podcast onto what happened, and I don't mind sharing some of the things and why I'm not there. I won't ask you that today as to why you're not with you, but you were coaching at South Charlotte,
Hmm.
um, and can you give me your perception on what you thought of maybe our coaching staff then, and something that is different now that you're with us that you didn't really see from like coaching against us? Does that make sense? I know that's a little bit of a complicated question, but like what you saw from the outside looking in, is it everything that you saw now that you're in, or is it different than what your perception was?
I would say it matches up pretty well. I loved seeing Trey. I didn't know how he fit or whatever. I knew he was a coach with you and that. But I would say that was one of the things that I loved to see about your program. And I was so excited, and how he was focused on locking left, and how I knew it was going to be a struggle for us. And you have that really quick guard. But what I will say is I loved, and I can't really think that you have been different from my expectations, really. Because I saw how you guys cared for the players. Yeah, you would call out on them, call them out, and get excited and amped up on them doing the right things. But at the same time, you did it with great sportsmanship, and you also were so excited no matter who was in the game. You cared about all the players, and our level, we were so young, and so young on skill level and everything else at that point, just program wise and everything. Like, we didn't really match up well. We had some speed that would, but you guys had a really quick guard. I remember quite a bit, but even your bench players, when they would make a good play, man, y'all were just as excited as you were about getting them to do the right thing. And so I just loved that. And I had a lot of respect for you guys, um, as a program and as leadership when you were putting together that team.
I
Um,
appreciate that. I appreciate
Yep.
that. Actually, your game in particular at South Charlotte, and the reason I asked that question because I do have to check myself sometimes because I'm so into like when I'm coaching, I'm not focused on the refs, I'm not focused on the crowd, I'm not focused on all the external factors. Like literally, we're looking at, is this player taking one step forward? Like literally just one step forward, and that's for all of them, for the best one and the one that's trying to get that playing time. And
right.
so, you know, I remember that game at South Charlotte, and I think Trey would too, that we went in the locker room and we were quite disappointed with our level of being able to stop some of the things that you were doing because, no disrespect, but we did have more talent on the court,
Well,
and you
yeah,
made it quite aggravating for us, and you were scoring baskets when we felt like we were a pretty good defensive team, and we shouldn't be giving up those type of baskets. And so, credit to you and your crew because that was one of those. We were not. We don't make apologies for wins when we win. That's not a thing. But there's times that you have an opponent that you're like, why are we struggling to stop that, or why are we not doing what we're supposed to do? And sometimes the opponent is doing some good things that made it a little bit annoying. So that's one game in particular. I don't know if you remember, Trey. We went in the locker room. It's like, look,
Mhm.
we won, but that was not a clean win, and we need to get better at this and this. So you did, believe it or not, you exposed some things that helped us throughout the season, and I think that was one game in particular that sticks out. There's two or three that stick out to me, Trey. I think one was in out of town, like maybe in Asheville or Hickory or
Yep.
somewhere.
Asheville.
At South Charlotte was another one, and credit to you and getting those kids ready to play because it's hard when you're going up against an opponent that just overpowers you a bit.
right.
You guys had no quit, and I was pretty excited
We
about
had no match inside. We had no height that year. We had, and I believe, if I remember that year, we had our most seasoned player. Um, she, I mean, it almost brings me to tears knowing what she went through, that season. She was a senior. She had worked so hard, um, you know, just improving her game and everything. And that was my first year, and and she played basically with an ankle that had torn tendons and everything going on in it. And she played because the doctors had basically said, um, you know, you can't make it worse. We got to go in there and repair it anyway. So she basically was going to play until it fell off. And so, I mean, that was just how much she loved the game. I couldn't keep her from the game, it was all I could do to try to hold her back. And I remember, if I remember right, that second game we were either without her or her limb was barely hanging on, and I think she played limited time, and she was very limited physically, but we were still able to be competitive because they were just starting to learn our system and really kind of get settled into our system offensively, and so we really worked hard to try to amp them up, and they knew they were out. We didn't have the talent to really match up position by position, but we uh, we were getting there, and so we just wanted to make it tough.
Yeah. And you did a good job. I mean, Trey, we talked about this. Some more of the games I've enjoyed coaching have been when we have had our back against a wall. When we don't match up, or we are underdogs, or we have a little bit of a, because then that's when true coaching comes out. Taking a bunch of good players and winning games is pretty simple. And we talked about culture a lot. Everybody says, "Oh, culture, culture, culture." Culture can be overrated because you can have bad culture and win.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But we talk about standards, and I think it's very difficult to have low standards or no standards and win at a competitive level. So we're really fixated on habits and standards. And so, like Trey, I think you would echo what he says about, like, even when you're undermanned, there's so many things to work on that it's just exciting as a coach because you can then, those are the games you can get better, I think, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, to me, that's the most fun. Like I always talk about my little Saba team. I mean, yeah, it's fun now. They're winning big. We talked about it Saturday, Carlos. But to me, like so far, the most fun has been, knowing that right now, we're losing by 15, by 20, but we know in a year, that score is going to quickly turn around. But it was the fact that the girls were competing still. You know that they were working their tails off, so it was only a matter of time before that hard work started paying off. And to me, that's where the fun is. It's like just the grind that you put in together.
I agree. I
Yes.
agree. Speaking of difficult and transitions and improving and all those things, I was in your shoes, Chad, last year. I coached a year before, made a change. God took us through a little bit of a different circumstances, and it is what it is, and you have to expect, kind of accept where you're at and where God wants you to be at the moment. Tell me about your transition to South Guilford, and even for Bailey, right? Because Bailey's your daughter,
Hmm.
and she coming into not knowing anybody. Like, tell us a little bit about your transition to South Guilford.
It's been, you. I don't going into it. I didn't want to place a lot of expectations on it because if your expectations aren't in line, then that can increase disappointment. So I wanted to create lower expectations and higher expectations in some ways. I said, because Bailey this year in the off season, right near, there were some things that aggravated her last season, and rightfully so. Um, and so with what she told me her goals were, she took a visit to a college, and that was the first time she had ever contemplated playing at the next level. She really just found basketball 2 years ago, because of my experience and between coaching and playing basketball. I never wanted any of my kids to feel, I almost did her a disservice because I really didn't get her exposed to basketball to see if she would like it as much. See other kids, and I never wanted her to feel pressure. Like she needed to be something she wasn't for my approval. So I kind of held her back because I feel like if she had played basketball earlier, she might have found a love for it earlier. But long story short, you know, she had those dreams, and I said, well, that podcast that I sent you, about greatness, that I'd shared with you, um, Bill Walton was coaching two of the best centers in the nation, and he was the only that. What stood out to me in that story was he was the only center to be drafted and never start a game in college in the first
Hmm.
round.
Hmm.
And so when we were sitting in the off season and trying to decide what the next move was, the AAU coach wanted her to play at a public school, and there was a a way we could work it out. And I really just, I love, I love the homeschool feel situation. And even though we could still homeschool and she could do it, she needed to be at a place where it's going to push her at every practice in every way and play the top, whether she sits on the bench or does whatever, right? She's got to have that growth to where she plays the best players every day. And so when she decided where she wanted to go, I was like, oh, I don't know about the drive, but you know, this is where we need to be. Plus, I didn't even know you were coaching at the time until I reached out to you. But I said, if you want to achieve what you want to do, it's really not, the environment's not going to get you there where you're at now if we stay there. And public school, you'll probably get more minutes there, but you won't be pushed. You won't be pushed to, and except for 1, 2 games a week. I said, or you could go to this program and you'd be pushed every single practice and in games. And so, that kind of led to our decision. And honestly, it's been better than I expected. And I know that it's had a lot of changes and we had a lot of growth in the program kind of really rapidly. And I can't imagine what that is like for you guys. Like, I have all the respect and empathy and everything involved because I know that it's a lot on your end managing all that. And so, you know, I I've just been amazed at the way God's put everybody's paths and talents in line to where we could all work together and make it a success. And I feel like it's really a success. And I know that I expect ugly in the beginning because ugliness means we're making decisions and we're getting better and we're making mistakes so that we can clean that up.
Mhm.
But just being able, I just love that the fact of everybody's there. It's not a popularity thing or a status thing, as far as there's not expectations and something set where, okay, you have a performance or this stat and this gives you some kind of status personally in the team. It's not like that. The girls just want to get better at basketball and they love basketball. And that's what it's about. And yes, you get closer, but man, these girls will have the opportunity to remember this and get close to, as they look back on these memories, these years don't get replaced.
Mhm.
And I see a cohesion and a love and a cheering for one another and just wanting to see everybody get better. And I feel like that doesn't happen if it's not led from the top down. And so, when they see leadership that loves basketball, when they see other girls that love basketball and want to grow, and they support each other in their growth, man, I tell you, they're building memories and relationships that can carry them throughout life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I appreciate that. That's very well said. And actually, I've been thinking about this. We have a quote for next practice, so hopefully, I mean, maybe I'll just give it away. But it's conviction over perfection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the conviction of doing it the right way, conviction of and sometimes it's not going to be perfect, and that goes for Trey, for myself, for Melly, for Jennifer, for Madison, for Charity, for the parents. I mean, there's always going to be imperfection because we're all imperfect, and maybe even in our approach, in the way we talk to a kid, in the way that we handle a situation. But I still want the conviction to be there. So the conviction over the perfection, and that's if we can all stay convicted. And I appreciate what you're saying because you're not like a normal dad. You've been a coach, so you get it. But we you were saying like how hard it is. It's actually been an absolute joy to have that many kids in the gym. I don't know if I could ever coach again without having both that many kids in the gym. It's we have 16 to 18 kids participating in every practice. There's always excitement. There's always energy. There's always focus. There's always and the hardest part. Your daughter plays JV, and obviously she's on our bench also for the varsity team there. But you know, the hardest part for the JV girls is for us to continue. I think Trey, you said this the other day. Remember, please, you're in the gym with a really good high school basketball team. And so you
Yes.
can't compare yourself to that, but you have to understand this is the level. And if every day you're practicing against this level, guess what? You know. And so this past weekend, Trey, we when they played Andrews, and Andrews is a good high school, big high school with a good varsity girls team. Our JV team looked really, really good. And I think part of it is because they're starting to come into their own and they understand like we're going to be playing tough teams. But I'm starting to see the growth, and I think Trey, their they were making .5 reads. Now, were they always perfect? No. Did they fail to get into actions as much as I would like to see them get actions? Yes. But man, were they making quick reads and they were putting pressure on the rim? I loved watching them play.
Hmm.
Trey, from your perspective, like, what Chad was mentioning about, Bailey being in the gym with like our group and all that. I mean, do you also agree that it's going to help her get to where she needs to go?
Well, yeah. I said it to what the JV. No, I said it to the girls that was on varsity or that sat on varsity's bench that, like the South Charlotte team that we just played, they have to do it through fire, right? Where the JV girls, they get to do it, and you know, in a box within a box because they have to go against the varsity girls during practice. The South Charlotte team has to do it, through games. And so, I told the JV girls to sit on the bench that, in 2 years, be prepared for them because they're going to be ready because they're going through it. And I was like, that has to be our mentality at practice. Like, yes, you're going to struggle. Yes, it's going to be ugly. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to fail, but you're playing against one of the best teams in the state. So, if they just keep that mentality, just keep trying to grow and keep trying to take a step forward in every practice, then, they're going to get there just because they are practicing against one of the better teams in the state. And, not only that, they get to see how a standard is like set and to play to a standard. Like we don't talk about winning, we talk about playing to our standard, and they get to see that now. So then when it's their turn to take over the team and lead the varsity team, like they know exactly how things should be done, how every practice, how we should be competing, every game, no matter who we're playing against, we're always looking at the person in the mirror first and making sure that we're playing to the best of our ability and the rest will take care of itself. And sometimes the win, sometimes the loss. But just having that standard to see and to look up to and to be in the gym and feel that energy, that will pay dividends in a couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, Trey and I talk so much about basketball. It's kind of probably too much. But one thing I'll say is that we've always said we don't want to coach for, I mean, yes, we're coaching our team to be ready for the next game. And yes, we're coaching, for this Christmas tournament, and we're going to coach to the next Southweight game, or we're going to coach to the, so it's not like we ignore those things, but, we take the two, I guess the rule of two, we're not coaching for the next, we have to look at the next 2 days, the next 2 months, and the next 2 years. And at the end of the day, like I want every kid that wants to play college basketball to have an opportunity to play college basketball if that's what they choose to do. And we've had a few that have gone, and so we're more focused on that at a higher level. Now, again, it doesn't mean that we're not taking care of business now. And if you watch us coach, winning is important, and it's important because you have to build a culture of winning. Once you build your winning culture, which again I told you it's a little bit overrated, but the standard is we got to learn how to win. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're preparing these players for what's coming next, which we hope is college ball. And if it's not, then they got really good at something and they learned how to do it the right way versus taking shortcuts. And that's where again a lot of the his training and all that, that's where that comes in. And Chad, I mean, you don't make a basketball player in season, and so you'll the most successful players have to do stuff in the off season. And I see, just for Bailey, since we're on that topic, I think this season is to get her feet wet with what we're doing. If we get some progress this season, I'll be really excited. But her jump needs to come from now until the next season and when that starts. That's going to be her jump. And so I'm excited to see, again, there's kids like Juliana and Bailey that really just started playing basketball, like didn't take it seriously until like a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't treat them that way. We don't think of it that way. Bailey is where she's at. We're going to meet her where she's at, but we're not leaving her there. We're going to take her where she needs to go. And so we're thankful for you, Chad, for being here. And so we try to keep our podcast around 20 minutes, so we're about 30. So but I love our conversation, and I think it was really fruitful. Trey, is there anything you want to leave us with as far as a thought as we take off?
And it's time for first place. Keep pounding.
Chad, I'm so grateful to be sharing the sidelines with you. So grateful you came to South Guilford. It was so weird for me to come and start wearing green because I'm not a green person. But shout out to South Guilford for making this a tremendous home for us. And sometimes when you're in the middle of a situation, or even like I said, me last year, I didn't know what God's plans are or were for us or for me. And it's, now seeing this materialize, I'm like, I'm so grateful and thankful to South Guilford for this opportunity to just be able to coach and be in that gym with great people like you. So Chad, we appreciate you coming on. After this, your life may never be the same. I don't know if you'll be able to go out in public,
Probably not.
for the fame, but hey, we got to get you personal security. We'll do what we have to do, my brother.
That's right. I appreciate it.
We'll see you tomorrow at the ball games.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Trey,
Peace.
see you, bro.